Okay, today is the 10th of August, and we come to Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 53, Seka Sutta, the disciple in higher training. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in the Sakyan country at Kapilavatthu in Nigroda's park. On that occasion, a new assembly hall had recently been built for the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu, and it had not yet been inhabited by any recluse or Brahmin or human being at all. Then the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down at one side and said, "Venerable Sir, a new assembly hall has recently been built here for the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu, and it has not yet been inhabited by any recluse or Brahmin or human being at all. Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One be the first to use it. When the Blessed One has used it first, then the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu will use it afterwards. That will lead to our welfare and happiness for a long time." Stop here for a moment. So here you see they have this tradition when they have a new building, they invite some monk to use it first. And nowadays there are some people who have come across this sutta, and when their new house is ready, they also sometimes invite a monk to go and stay before they go in to stay. The Blessed One consented in silence. Then when they saw that he had consented, they got up from their seats, and after paying homage to him, keeping him on their right, they went to the assembly hall. They covered it completely with coverings and prepared seats, and they put out a large water jug and hung up an oil lamp. Then they went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, they sat down at one side and said, "Venerable Sir, the assembly hall has been covered completely with coverings, and seats have been prepared. A large water jug has been put out, and an oil lamp hung up. Now is the time for the Blessed One to do as he thinks fit." Then the Blessed One dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, he went with the Sangha of monks to the assembly hall. When he arrived, he washed his feet and then entered the hall and sat down by the central pillar facing the east. And the monks washed their feet and then entered the hall and sat down by the western wall facing the east with the Blessed One before them. And the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu washed their feet and entered the hall and sat down by the eastern wall facing the west with the Blessed One before them. Then when the Blessed One had instructed, urged, roused, and encouraged the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu with talk on the Dhamma for much of the night, he said to the Venerable Ananda, "Ananda, speak to the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu about the disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way. My back is uncomfortable. I will rest it." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Ananda replied. Then the Blessed One prepared his patchwork cloak folded in four and lay down on his right side in the lion's pose with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and fully aware, after noting in his mind the time for rising. I stop here for a while. So you see, when they invited the Buddha and the monks to come, they covered the hall completely with coverings and prepared seats, put out water for drinking and washing the feet also, and hung up an oil lamp. Then you notice after the Buddha came in, he sat facing the east. This is a tradition in yoga. When we meditate also, we face the east. Probably because the earth is turning in that direction. So when we face the east, it's like you are sitting in a car or in a bus facing the front. Okay, the disciple in higher training is the Arya. So the Buddha was tired. After talking a lot, he wanted to lie down to rest his back. Asked Venerable Ananda to speak. Then the Venerable Ananda addressed Mahanama, the Sakyan, thus. I stop here for a moment. This Mahanama is a relation of the Buddha. Seems like he's the cousin of the Buddha. Mahanama. Here a noble disciple is possessed of virtue, guards the doors of his sense faculties, is moderate in eating, and devoted to wakefulness. He possesses 7 good qualities, and he is one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind, and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. And how is a noble disciple possessed of virtue? Here a noble disciple is virtuous. He dwells restrained with the restraint of the Patimokkha. He is perfect in conduct and resort, seeing fear in the slightest fault. He trains by undertaking the training precepts. That is how a noble disciple is possessed of virtue. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, remember Ananda is giving a list of the charana. Charana is conduct or practice of the holy path. The Buddha is said to be Vijja Charana Sampanno, perfect or complete or replete with conduct and knowledge. So this conduct here is the list given is virtue, guards the doors of the sense faculties, moderate in eating, devoted to wakefulness, possesses 7 good qualities, and can obtain the 4 jhanas. So here the first one talking about virtue, among virtue or moral conduct. A monk is restrained by the restraint of the Patimokkha. The Patimokkha for the Theravada monk is 227 precepts that he has to keep. And then he's perfect in conduct and resort. That means his conduct. Resort is where he goes to for alms or for wherever he. And there are certain resorts a monk is not supposed to go. For example, go to where prostitutes stay, go at the wrong time to where nuns stay, go to where a single woman stays. All that is not proper for a monk, unless he's accompanied by somebody. Seeing fear in the slightest fault, so he's very careful even in the small precepts. And how does a noble disciple guard the doors of his sense faculties? On seeing a form with the eye, a noble disciple does not grasp at its signs and features, since if he left the eye faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade him. He practices the way of its restraint. He guards the eye faculty. He undertakes the restraint of the eye faculty. Similarly, on hearing a sound with the ear, smelling an odor with the nose, tasting a flavor with the tongue, touching a tangible with the body, cognizing a mind object with the mind, a noble disciple does not grasp at its signs and features, since if he left the faculties unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade him. He practices the way of their restraint. He guards the faculties. He takes the restraint of the faculties. That is how a noble disciple guards the doors of his sense faculties. This one we've seen before, that a monk in training should always be careful at the 6 sense doors, because that is where Mara can catch us. So we don't pay too much attention to the signs and features of the sense objects. And how is a noble disciple moderate in eating? Here, reflecting wisely, a noble disciple takes food neither for amusement nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of this body, for ending discomfort, and for assisting the holy life, considering, thus I shall terminate old feelings without arousing new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless, and shall live in comfort. That is how a noble disciple is moderate in eating. And how is a noble disciple devoted to wakefulness? Here, during the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, a noble disciple purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the middle watch of the night, that means from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., he lies down on the right side in the lion's pose, with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and fully aware after noting in his mind the time for rising. After rising in the third watch of the night, that means from 2 to 6 a.m., while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. That is how a noble disciple is devoted to wakefulness. In other words, the monk in training, he sleeps the minimum that is required. After he wakes up, he tries not to sleep again. And how does a noble disciple possess 7 good qualities? Here, a noble disciple has faith, saddha. He places his faith in the Tathagata's enlightenment thus. The Blessed One is Arahant, Sammasambuddha, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened, blessed. He has a sense of shame. He is ashamed of misconduct in body, speech, and mind, ashamed of engaging in evil and unwholesome states. He has fear of wrongdoing. He is afraid of misconduct in body, speech, and mind, afraid of engaging in evil and unwholesome deeds. This number 2 and number 3 is hiri ottappa. He has learned much, remembers what he has learned, and consolidates what he has learned. Such teachings as are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing, and affirm a holy life that is utterly perfect and pure. Such teachings as these he has learned much of, remembered, recited verbally, investigated with the mind, and penetrated well by view. 5th one, he is energetic in abandoning unwholesome states and in undertaking wholesome states. He is steadfast, firm in striving, not remiss in developing wholesome states. Number 6, he has recollection. He possesses the highest recollection and skill. He recalls and recollects what was done long ago and spoken long ago. Let's stop for a moment. Now, hear this word. The translation is mindfulness. The Pali word is sati. And sati, you see here the definition of sati. He recalls and recollects what was done long ago and spoken long ago. That means this is memory. He has a very good memory. So the proper word is recollection. And in the practice of a monk, recollection here means remembering to put your attention to recollect the 4 objects of sati, to always contemplate body, feelings, mind, and Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, not to allow the mind to stray out to the 6 sense objects. That's why it's called recollection, because you have to remember to put your attention on only the 4 objects of sati and not on worldly things. Number 7, he is wise. He possesses wisdom regarding rise and disappearance. Actually, it's rise and cessation. That is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. That is how a noble disciple possesses 7 good qualities. I just repeat. The first one is faith, faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Second is hiri, a sense of shame. Third is ottappa, fear of wrongdoing. Number 4, I think, is bahu sutta, learn much. That means he knows much Dhamma, the Buddha's Dhamma, Buddha's teachings. He is well learned. And the 5th one is energetic, virya, energetic in cultivating wholesome states, abandoning unwholesome states. That means improving his character, the flaws in his character he gets rid of and cultivates wholesome states. And then number 6, recollection, always putting the attention on the 4 objects of sati, body, feeling, mind, and Dhamma. And number 7, wisdom. Wisdom here means being able to see impermanence, to see the rise and cessation of everything in the world. And how is a noble disciple? One who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. Here, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a noble disciple enters upon and abides in the 1st jhana. Then with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, he enters upon and abides in the second jhana. With the fading away as well of delight, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, he enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure and utter purity of recollection or mindfulness and equanimity. That is how a noble disciple is one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the four jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. These are states of samadhi, concentration. When a noble disciple has thus become one who is possessed of virtue, who guards the doors of his sense faculties, who is moderate in eating, who is devoted to wakefulness, who possesses 7 good qualities, who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. He is called one in higher training, who has entered upon the way. His eggs are unspoiled. He is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Suppose there were a hen with 8 or 10 or 12 eggs, which she had covered, incubated and nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, oh, that my chicks might pierce their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely. Yet the chicks are capable of piercing their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatching out safely. So too, when a noble disciple has thus become one who is possessed of virtue, etc., he is called one in higher training, who has entered upon the way. His eggs are unspoiled. He is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, if a monk cultivates all these practices stated here, then the Buddha says he is capable of enlightenment. Having arrived at that supreme purity of sati and upekkha, recollection and equanimity, this noble disciple recollects his manifold past lives. Thus, with the aspects and particulars, he recollects his manifold past lives. This is the first breaking out, like that of the hen's chicks from their shells. Having arrived at that same supreme purity of recollection and equanimity, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, this noble disciple sees beings passing away and reappearing. He understands how beings pass on according to their actions. This is his second breaking out, like that of the hen's chicks from their shells. Having arrived at that same supreme purity of recollection and equanimity, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, this noble disciple here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. This is his third breaking out, like that of the hen's chicks from their shells. When a noble disciple is possessed of virtue, that is his conduct. When he guards the doors of his sense faculties, that is his conduct. When he is moderate in eating, that is his conduct. When he is devoted to wakefulness, that is his conduct. When he possesses 7 good qualities, that is his conduct. When he is one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now, that is his conduct. Let's stop here for a moment. So here this list is supposed to be charana, conduct or practice of a monk. According to the commentary, the first 4, virtue, guarding the doors of the sense faculties, moderation in eating, devotion to wakefulness, plus 7 good qualities makes 11, plus the 4 jhanas makes 15. So according to the commentary, this is the traditional interpretation of charana, 15 factors. But actually, if you take the 7 good qualities as one factor, and the 4 jhanas as 1 factor, it's only 6 factors here. But from various suttas, like in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 27, and this sutta and other suttas, we have compiled a list of 10 factors. The first one is sila, which is the same. The second one is contentment, which is not mentioned here. Third is guarding the sense doors, which is here. Fourth is sati sampajanya. You could say recollection and mindfulness, which is not mentioned here. And then 5th is moderation in eating. 6 is devotion to wakefulness. 7 is 7 good qualities. 8 is seclusion, not mentioned here, but mentioned in other suttas. 9 is abandonment of the 5 hindrances, also not mentioned here, but mentioned in other suttas. 10 is the 4 jhanas. So these are 10 factors. But if you take the 7 good qualities to be 7 factors and the 4 jhanas to be 4 factors, then we have a total of 19. That means we have 4 more factors than the traditional interpretation, the commentaries. And then the vijja, here according to the commentary, vijja consists of the 3 knowledges of the Buddha. The first one is recollecting the past lives. The second one is the having the divine eye, the heavenly eye, being able to see beings passing away and being reborn, passing away and being reborn. The divine eye is the second knowledge according to here. The third one is destruction of the asavas, the taints. So here, according to traditional Buddhism or the commentaries, vijja consists of 3 knowledges. But if we combine with other suttas, we find actually vijja consists of 8 knowledges. The 6 abhinya. The 6 abhinya is what? One more is having the heavenly ear. The other one is being able to read others' minds. The third one is various kinds of psychic power, walking through the wall, diving into the water, into the earth like water and coming out again. One body multiplying into many bodies, being able to sit cross-legged and fly like a bird, being able to touch the sun and the moon, etc. I think it's called psychokinesis. So those are another 3. Then another 2 more is vipassana jnana. Vipassana jnana is contemplation knowledge, contemplation of the body. And then mano maya idi, mind created body. Like the Buddha, he has this ability to take out from the top of his head a body can come out from the top of his head. You can call it the astral body. And the suttas, they call it a golden colored body. Sometimes he wants to talk to his disciples, because they might be meditating in the middle of the night and they are nodding, getting sleepy, overcome by sloth and torpor, and then he goes to them with this mind created body. So to continue, when he recollects his manifold past lives with their aspects and particulars, that is his true knowledge. When with the divine eye, he sees beings passing away and reappearing and understands how beings pass on according to their actions, that is his true knowledge. When by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, he here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints, that is his true knowledge. This noble disciple is thus said to be perfect in true knowledge, perfect in conduct, perfect in true knowledge and conduct. I'll stop here for a moment. So here you can see the perfect in true knowledge refers to the 3 knowledges I just mentioned, recollecting past lives, the heavenly eye, and destruction of the taints or asavas. And this stanza was uttered by the Brahma Sanan Kumara. The noble clan is held to be the best of people as to lineage, but best of gods and humans is one perfect in true knowledge and conduct. One perfect in true knowledge and conduct is the Arahant, one, the liberated one. Now that stanza was well sung by the Brahma Sanan Kumara, not ill sung. It was well spoken, not ill spoken. It has a meaning and is not meaningless. And it was approved by the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One rose and addressed the Venerable Ananda thus: Good Ananda, it is good that you have spoken to the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu about the disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way. That is what the Venerable Ananda said. The teacher approved. The Sakyans of Kapilavatthu were satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Ananda's words. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see the Buddha is explaining the conduct and the knowledges of an Arahant. But this sutta, as I mentioned just now, is not these two things, conduct and knowledges in this sutta are not complete. Now we come to the next sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 54, Potalya Sutta, 2 Potalya. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living in the country of the Anguttarapans at a town of theirs named Apana. Then when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed and taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Apana for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Apana and had returned from his alms round, after his meal he went to a certain grove for the day's abiding. Having entered the grove, he sat down at the root of a tree. Potalya the householder, while walking and wandering for exercise, wearing full dress with parasol and sandals, also went to the grove. And having entered the grove, he went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side. The Blessed One said to him, "There are seats, householder. Sit down if you like." When this was said, the householder Potalya thought, "The recluse Gotama addresses me as householder," and angry and displeased, he remained silent. A second time, the Blessed One said to him, "There are seats, householder. Sit down if you like." And a second time, the householder Potalya thought, "The recluse Gotama addresses me as householder," and angry and displeased, he remained silent. A third time, the Blessed One said to him, "There are seats, householder. Sit down if you like." When this was said, the householder Potalya thought, "The recluse Gotama addresses me as householder," and angry and displeased, he said to the Blessed One, "Master Gotama, it is neither fitting nor proper that you address me as householder." And the Buddha said, "Householder, you have the aspects, marks, and signs of a householder." And he said, "Nevertheless, Master Gotama, I have given up all my works and cut off all my affairs." "In what way have you given up all your works, householder, and cut off all your affairs?" "Master Gotama, I have given up all my wealth, grain, silver, and gold to my children as their inheritance. Without advising or admonishing them, I live merely on food and clothing. This is how I have given up all my works and cut off all my affairs." Householder, the cutting off of affairs as you describe it is one thing. But in the Noble One's discipline, the Aryan discipline, the cutting off of affairs is different. Stop here for a moment. So this man, like a lot of people, just because he has given up his money to his children, he thinks that he's a renunciant. But as you see later, he still has wives, children, etc., and still enjoying sensual pleasures, etc. What is the cutting off of affairs like in the Noble One's discipline, Venerable Sir? It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma, showing what the cutting off of affairs is like in the Noble One's discipline. Then listen, householder, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, Potalya the householder replied. The Blessed One said, "Householder, there are 8 things in the Noble One's discipline that lead to the cutting off of affairs." What are the 8? With the support of non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. With the support of taking only what is given, the taking of what is not given is to be abandoned. With the support of truthful speech, false speech is to be abandoned. With the support of unmalicious speech, malicious speech is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from rapacious greed is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from spiteful scolding is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from angry despair is to be abandoned. With the support of non-arrogance, arrogance is to be abandoned. These are the 8 things stated in brief, without being expounded in detail, that lead to the cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline. Let's stop here for a moment. So the fact that the Buddha mentioned all these things, probably this man, Puttaliya, he still has all these, blemishes, still killing, still stealing, lying, etc. Venerable Sir, it would be good if, out of compassion, the Blessed One would expound to me in detail these 8 things that lead to the cutting off of affairs in the Blessed One's discipline, which have been stated in brief by the Blessed One, without being expounded in detail. Then listen, householder, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, Puttaliya, the householder, replied. The Blessed One said, with the support of non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. So it was said, and with reference to what was this said, here a noble disciple considers thus, I am practicing the way to the abandoning and cutting off of those fetters because of which I might kill living beings. If I were to kill living beings, I would blame myself for doing so. The wise, having investigated, would censure me for doing so. And on the dissolution of the body after death, because of killing living beings, an unhappy destination would be expected. But this killing of living beings is itself a factor and a hindrance. And while pains, vexation, and fever might arise through the killing of living beings, there are no pains, vexation, and fever in one who abstains from killing living beings. So it is with reference to this that it was said, with the support of non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. Similarly, with the support of taking only what is given, the taking of what is not given is to be abandoned. With the support of truthful speech, false speech is to be abandoned. With the support of unmalicious speech, malicious speech is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from rapacious greed is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from spiteful scolding is to be abandoned. With the support of refraining from angry despair is to be abandoned. With the support of non-arrogance, arrogance is to be abandoned. So it was said, and with reference to what was this said, here a noble disciple considers thus, I am practicing the way to the abandoning and cutting off of these factors, because of which I might be all those unwholesome things. In the same way, the Buddha says that if he did all these unwholesome actions, then he would blame himself for doing so, and the wise, having investigated his actions, would also censure him. And then on the dissolution of the body after death, an unhappy destination would be expected. These 8 things that lead to the cutting off affairs in the Noble One's discipline have now been expounded in detail. But the cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline has not yet been achieved entirely and in all ways. And Puttaliya asked, Venerable Sir, how is the cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline achieved entirely and in all ways? It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma, showing me how the cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline is achieved entirely and in all ways. Then listen, householder, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, Puttaliya, the householder, replied. The Blessed One said, Householder, suppose a dog, overcome by hunger and weakness, was waiting by a butcher's shop. Then a skilled butcher or his apprentice would cut out a skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood and toss it to the dog. What do you think, householder? Would that dog get rid of his hunger and weakness by gnawing such a skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood? No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because that skeleton consisted only of meatless bones smeared with blood. Eventually, that dog would reap weariness and disappointment. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to a skeleton by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, he avoids the equanimity that is diversified. Based on diversity, he develops the equanimity that is unified. Based on unity, where clinging to the material things of the world utterly cease without remainder. Let's stop here for a moment. This equanimity that is unified refers to the jhanas, one-pointedness of mind through meditation. then only clinging to the material things of the world can cease. So here the first, this simile of the skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood. This is a simile for sensual pleasures. This is a very interesting sutta because it gives these 7 similes for sensual pleasures in detail. We sometimes come across these 7 similes in other suttas, but it is not described in detail. In this sutta, it is described in detail. So the Buddha says sensual pleasures, when we indulge in it, it's not really satisfying. It's only for a very short time. And then the flames of desire increase more rather than decrease. That's a thing about worldly pleasures. When we enjoy worldly pleasures, our appetite becomes greater, flames of desire become greater, and we keep chasing after this, but it is never satisfactory. So the simile here is like a dog trying to chew these bones which have no meat. Keeps on chewing at the bone, he becomes very tired, but he doesn't satisfy his hunger. The second simile. Householder, suppose a vulture or crow or a hawk seized a piece of meat and flew away, and then vultures, crows, and hawks flew up and pecked and clawed it. What do you think, householder? If that vulture, crow, or hawk does not quickly let go of that piece of meat, wouldn't it incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to a piece of meat by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to the material things of the world utterly cease without remainder. So this second simile is a simile of a piece of meat. When a bird, a hawk or something seizes a piece of meat, other birds, other hawks and crows, etc., will go after it, try to take away the piece of meat from him. So in the same way, when we acquire property and wealth in the world, a lot of robbers and cheats and all that will try to take away your property, and give you a lot of headache. If you try to guard your property, if you're a millionaire or billionaire, you have a lot of worries. The more money you have, the more worries you have, because the richer you are, then the more attractive your piece of meat. So a lot of crooks will be coming after you. Might catch your children, kidnap your children, and kill your children, and all these things. Okay, the third one. Householder, suppose a man took a blazing grass torch and went against the wind. What do you think, householder? If that man does not quickly let go of that blazing grass torch, wouldn't that blazing grass torch burn his hand or his arm or some other part of his body, so that he might incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to a grass torch by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to the material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. So this third simile is a blazing grass torch. This man is walking with the blazing grass torch held in front of him, but he's walking against the wind. So the wind will carry the flame towards him and burn him. So in the same way, sometimes we indulge in sensual pleasures, for example, engaging in adultery and all that, then it burns us. Whether somebody will beat you up, or you might go to court, your family will break up, and all these things, all these problems will burn you because you chase after sensual pleasures. Or some people, they go and then indulge in sensual pleasures, and then they get VD or AIDS, etc., and a lot of problems. Okay, the fourth one. Householder, suppose there were a charcoal pit deeper than a man's height, full of glowing coals, without flame or smoke. Then a man came who wanted to live and not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoiled from pain. And two strong men seized him by both arms and dragged him towards a charcoal pit. What do you think, householder? Would that man twist his body this way and that? Yes, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because that man knows that if he falls into that charcoal pit, he will incur death or deadly suffering because of that. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to a charcoal pit by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to the material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. So here, a person who understands the Dhamma, he will see sensual pleasures like a charcoal pit that can burn you. So sometimes some people, having gone through the round of rebirths for a long time and having gone perhaps to hell because of adultery, when they get the chance to commit adultery also, they will dare not do it. They know there will be a lot of suffering from it. So sensual pleasures is like a charcoal pit. The fifth one, householder. Suppose a man dreamt about lovely parks, lovely groves, lovely meadows, and lovely lakes, and on waking up he saw nothing of it. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to a dream by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to the material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. So this fifth simile is sensual pleasures is compared to a dream. Sometimes the thought that we are going to enjoy sensual pleasures, whether it's good food or sex or show or anything, before you indulge in it, you think so highly of it, just like like daydreaming about it. But when you actually experience it, it's not all that great. So in the same way, the Buddha says sensual pleasures is like a dream. You imagine it's all so beautiful and all that. Waking up, there's nothing. So similarly, sometimes we go to great extent to satisfy our sensual pleasures, but when you really reflect on it, actually like the simile given in the Magandhya Sutta, the Buddha says, sensual pleasures is like an itch. A leper, his skin, his flesh is all rotten, and because of the bacteria and all that, he feels the itch so badly that he has to scratch and scratch and scratch until the blood comes out and turns to pus. And still he cannot satisfy that itch because it goes into his very bones. What does he do? He takes a charcoal and burns his flesh because the itch is extreme. And only then he satisfies that itch, but only for a while. Later, the itch comes back. Again, he has to scratch until the pus comes out, turns to pus, and then he has to burn himself. But the more he does it, the worse his condition becomes. So there is another simile given in the Magandhya Sutta. Okay. Householder, suppose a man borrowed goods on loan, a fancy carriage and fine jewel earrings, and preceded and surrounded by those borrowed goods, he went to the marketplace. Then people, seeing him, would say, "Sirs, that is a rich man. That is how the rich enjoy their wealth." Then the owners, whenever they saw him, would take back their things. What do you think, householder? Would that be enough for that man to become dejected? Yes, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because the owners took back their things. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to borrowed goods by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. So this last one, the sensual pleasures, is compared to borrowed goods. You enjoy it for a short while, later it's all taken away from you. And then, not only that, when we enjoy sensual pleasures in the world, our blessings reduces. We come into this world with a certain amount of blessings. As we enjoy life, our blessings reduce, keep on reducing. And then in the end, when we are dying, if we don't have enough blessings, we go to a woeful plane of rebirth. So in the same way, this man, sensual pleasures is like the borrowed goods. He enjoys it, but in the end he suffers. It's all taken away from him, because everything in the world is impermanent. Householder, suppose there were a dense grove not far from some village or town, within which there was a tree laden with fruit, but none of its fruit had fallen to the ground. Then the man came needing fruit, seeking fruit, wandering in search of fruit. And he entered the grove and saw the tree laden with fruit. Thereupon he thought, this tree is laden with fruit, but none of its fruit has fallen to the ground. I know how to climb a tree, so let me climb this tree, eat as much fruit as I want, and fill my bag. And he did so. Then the second man came needing fruit, seeking fruit, wandering in search of fruit, and taking a sharp axe, he too entered the grove and saw that tree laden with fruit. Thereupon he thought, this tree is laden with fruit, but none of its fruit has fallen to the ground. I do not know how to climb a tree, so let me cut this tree down at its root, eat as much fruit as I want, and fill my bag. And he did so. What do you think, householder? If that first man who had climbed the tree doesn't come down quickly, when the tree falls, wouldn't he break his hand or his foot or some other part of his body, so that he might incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to a fruit tree by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, he avoids the equanimity that is diversified, based on diversity, and develops the equanimity that is unified, based on unity, where clinging to the material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. This equanimity that is diversified refers to worldly equanimity, and equanimity that is unified refers to the equanimity in jhana, when the mind becomes one-pointed. So this last simile, sensual pleasures, is compared to a fruit tree. The first man went to enjoy the fruits of the tree, and while he's enjoying the fruits of the tree, there's much danger for him, because the second man is chopping the tree down. He's going to break his limbs and fall down. So in the same way, if you enjoy sensual pleasures, there are some other people also out to enjoy the same sensual pleasures that we are enjoying. So this simile is a bit similar to the first one. Is it the first one, or is it the second one about the piece of meat, where this bird has flew up in the air with a piece of meat, and other birds come after him. So in the same way, this man is enjoying the fruit, but another man also wants to enjoy the fruit, and so he is in great danger. Having arrived at that same supreme purity of recollection and equanimity, this noble disciple recollects his manifold past lives, that is, one birth, two births, etc. Thus, with the aspects and particulars, he recollects his manifold past lives. Having arrived at that same supreme purity of recollection and equanimity, with the divine eye which is purified and surpasses the human, this noble disciple sees beings passing away and reappearing, and he understands how beings pass on according to their actions or karma. Having arrived at that same supreme purity of recollection and equanimity, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, this noble disciple here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. At this point, householder, the cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline has been achieved entirely and in all ways. What do you think, householder? Do you see in yourself any cutting off of affairs like this, cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline, when it is achieved entirely and in all ways? And Puttaliya answered, Venerable Sir, who am I that I should possess any cutting off of affairs entirely and in all ways like that in the Noble One's discipline? I am far indeed, Venerable Sir, from that cutting off of affairs in the Noble One's discipline when it has been achieved entirely and in all ways. For, Venerable Sir, though the wanderers of other sects are not thoroughbreds, we imagine that they are thoroughbreds. Though they are not thoroughbreds, we fed them the food of thoroughbreds. Though they are not thoroughbreds, we set them in the place of thoroughbreds. But the monks are thoroughbreds. We imagine that they are not thoroughbreds. Though they are thoroughbreds, we fed them the food of those who are not thoroughbreds. Though they are thoroughbreds, we set them in the place of those who are not thoroughbreds. But now, Venerable Sir, as the wanderers of other sects are not thoroughbreds, we shall understand that they are not thoroughbreds. As they are not thoroughbreds, we shall feed them the food of those who are not thoroughbreds. As they are not thoroughbreds, we shall set them in the place of those who are not thoroughbreds. But as the monks are thoroughbreds, we shall understand that they are thoroughbreds. As they are thoroughbreds, we shall feed them the food of thoroughbreds. As they are thoroughbreds, we shall set them in the place of those who are thoroughbreds. Venerable Sir, the Blessed One has inspired in me love for recluses, confidence in recluses, reverence for recluses. Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of monks. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower, who has gone to him for refuge for life. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says that the cutting off of affairs in the Aryan discipline, that means the renunciant. The renunciant is one who cultivates, practices sila, moral conduct, and then does not enjoy sensual pleasures, and then attains the higher knowledges, the abhinyas, and culminates in liberation by mind and liberation by wisdom. This is thoroughly thorough cutting off of affairs in the Aryan discipline. So the Puttaliya had to admit that he has not achieved any of these states, and also he realized that he was he thought those ascetics of other sects really thoroughbreds, really proper monks, but now he realizes that the Buddha's disciples are the proper monks. Sutta number 55, Jivaka Sutta, 2 Jivaka. This Jivaka, from the Vinaya books, we know Jivaka Kumarabhacha was the personal physician of the king. And in this sutta, apparently from this sutta we can see that he has just come to know the Buddha. So he doesn't understand the Buddha so much yet. And also this sutta is about the eating of meat. It's a very important sutta where the standard, the view of the Buddha concerning meat eating is set out quite clearly. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha in the mango grove of Jivaka Kumarabhacha. Then Jivaka Kumarabhacha went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, I have heard this. They slaughter living beings for the recluse Gotama. The recluse Gotama knowingly eats meat prepared for him from animals killed for his sake. Venerable Sir, to those who speak thus, say what has been said by the Blessed One, and not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact. Do they explain in accordance with the Dhamma, in such a way that nothing which provides a ground for censure can be legitimately reduced from their assertions. And the Buddha said, Jivaka, those who speak thus do not say what has been said by me, but misrepresent me with what is untrue and contrary to fact. Jivaka, I say that there are 3 instances in which meat should not be eaten, when it is seen, heard, and suspected that the living being has been slaughtered for the monk. I say that meat should not be eaten in these 3 instances. I say that there are 3 instances in which meat may be eaten, when it is not seen, not heard, and not suspected that the living being has been slaughtered for that person. I say that meat may be eaten in these 3 instances. I stop here for a moment. So here, concerning meat eating, the Buddha has these 2 conditions, these 2 sets of conditions. If we see, hear, or suspect that the meat has been purposely slaughtered for us, whether we are a monk or not, then we should not eat. But if we know that the meat, we see, we hear, and we do not see, do not hear, and do not suspect that the meat has been purposely slaughtered, the animal has been purposely slaughtered for us, then we can eat. In other words, if we, for a layperson goes to the market to buy meat, if it's already slaughtered, you can buy. It is permissible to eat. But if it's alive, you cannot order that animal to be slaughtered for you. For example, you cannot choose chicken to be slaughtered, or go into a restaurant that has live fish, and then you select a fish to be slaughtered for you. That is also not permissible. So, for like in the case of monks, generally monks, when they go to lay people and beg for their food, generally the lay people do not know that the monk is coming. So if they slaughter the animal, it is slaughtered for their own family. But if the monk comes to beg for the food, and they see the monk, they give a portion to the monk, then the monk may eat the meat, because it was not purposely slaughtered for him. It was slaughtered for the family. It just happens that the monk comes along and they give him a portion. But if the monk knows that it was purposely slaughtered, then the monk cannot eat. Also, if lay people say order a few chickens or a few ducks, also it's not proper, because if you order a few chickens or a few ducks, they have to slaughter for you. So if you go to the market and meat is available, you already slaughtered, you buy it. You don't order for another day. If you order for another day, it's not so pure. To continue, here Jivaka, some monk lives in dependence upon a certain village or town. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth quarter. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Then a householder or a householder's son comes to him and invites him for the next day's meal. The monk accepts if he likes. When the night is ended, in the morning he dresses, and taking his bowl and outer robe, he goes to the house of that householder or householder's son and sits down on a seat made ready. Then the householder or householder's son serves him with good alms food. He does not think, how good that the householder or householder's son serves me with good alms food. If only a householder or householder's son might serve me with such good alms food in the future. He does not think thus. He eats the alms food without being tied to it, infatuated with it, and utterly committed to it, seeing the danger in it and understanding the escape from it. What do you think, Jivaka? Would that monk on such an occasion choose for his own affliction or another's affliction, or for the affliction of both? No, Venerable Sir. Does not that monk sustain himself with blameless food on that occasion? Yes, Venerable Sir. I have heard this, Venerable Sir. Brahma abides in loving kindness. Venerable Sir, the Blessed One is my visible witness to that, for the Blessed One abides in loving kindness. Jivaka, any lust, any hate, any delusion whereby ill will might arise have been abandoned by the Tathagata, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they are no longer subject to future arising. If what you said referred to that, then I allow it to you. Venerable Sir, what I said referred to precisely that. I stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that no ill will can arise in the Buddha. He has metta, loving kindness all the time. Why no ill will can arise? Because all the lust, hatred and delusion, which is a condition for ill will to arise, have all been exterminated, eliminated. Here Jivaka, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain village or town. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, likewise with joy, with equanimity. Likewise the second, third and fourth quarter. So above, below, around and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with these qualities, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Then a householder or a householder's son comes to him and invites him for the next day's meal. The monk accepts if he likes. What do you think, Jivaka? Would that monk on such an occasion choose for his own affliction or for another's affliction, or for the affliction of both? No, Venerable Sir. Does not that monk sustain himself with blameless food on that occasion? Yes, Venerable Sir. I have heard this, Venerable Sir. Brahma abides in equanimity. Venerable Sir, the Blessed One is my visible witness to that, for the Blessed One abides in equanimity. Jivaka, any lust, any hate, any delusion whereby cruelty or discontent or aversion might arise have been abandoned by the Tathagata, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they are no longer subject to future arising. If what you said referred to that, then allow it to you. Venerable Sir, what I said referred to precisely that. Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, there's no possibility of any cruelty or discontent or aversion arising in him because the condition for these, that is hate, lust, hatred and delusion, have all been eliminated by the Buddha. And then the Buddha continued, if anyone slaughters a living being for the Tathagata or his disciple, he lays up much demerit in 5 instances. When he says, go and fetch that living being, this is the first instance in which he lays up much demerit. When that living being experiences pain and grief on being led along with a neck halter, this is the second instance in which he lays up much demerit. When he says, go and slaughter that living being, this is the third instance in which he lays up much demerit. When that living being experiences pain and grief on being slaughtered, this is the fourth instance in which he lays up much demerit. When he provides the Tathagata or his disciple with food that is not permissible, this is the fifth instance in which he lays up much demerit. Anyone who slaughters a living being for the Tathagata or his disciple lays up much demerit in these 5 instances. When this was said, Jivaka Kumarabacha said to the Blessed One, it is wonderful, Venerable Sir, it is marvelous. The monks sustain themselves with permissible food. The monks sustain themselves with blameless food. Magnificent, Venerable Sir, magnificent, Venerable Sir. From today, let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life. That's the end of the sutta here. So here, you can see this standard of the that we have to uphold. If we eat meat, there must be 3 conditions. We don't see, we don't hear, and we don't suspect that the animal was purposely killed for us. The other thing, in the monks' precepts, the Buddha forbade monks to insist on any particular type of food unless the monk is sick. Then, in other words, a monk cannot have preference. Whether you want to eat vegetarian food or you want to eat any type of meat or anything. Because the Buddha says a monk should be easy to look after, easy for lay people to support. Must not make life difficult for lay people. So whatever is given to a monk, if it's reasonable food, we should eat without having preferences. But if a monk is sick, then that he needs certain type of food, then he can ask. The last thing I want to mention is that in China, they have this misconception. They say that monks Sir Chai, and Sir Chai, actually, this word Chai means fasting, but they think it means vegetarian food, and because they have confused these two terms, Sir Chai and Sir Su. Sir Su is taking vegetarian food. Sir Chai is, we know, the Muslims, when they buka puasa is translated in Chinese as Khai Chai. So the meaning of Chai in Chinese is puasa, which is fasting. And so in the Buddha's teachings, when we practice the spiritual path, we only eat in the morning, when the sun comes up to noon, when the sun is at the highest point. After that we fast until the next dawn. So that's the meaning of Sir Chai. And the reason they confuse it with Sir Su, taking vegetarian food, is because in China, in the year 511, there was an emperor called Liang Wuti. This emperor used to be a Taoist. At the age of 40, he became a Buddhist. And after that, he built a lot of monasteries and temples, etc., and did a lot of good deeds for the Buddhist religion. But then later, when he compared Taoist priests and Buddhist monks, Taoist priests are vegetarians, so he thought Buddhist monks taking all kinds of meat was not pure. So he decreed, he commanded that all monks and nuns in China must not eat meat. But from that time, it adversely affected the Sangha. They could not go on Pindabat, could not go on alms round. And when they could not go on alms round, they had to cook their food, which is against the Vinaya. And to cook the food also, they had to look for money. They had to possess money. Again, that is against, contrary to the Vinaya. So to get money, they started to do chanting. So the lifestyle of monks in China slowly became very similar to Taoist priests. They take vegetarian food, they do chanting to get money and all this. So they could not practice like monks during the Buddha's time. During the Buddha's time, monks, because they go on alms round for their food, they could live in caves, they could live in hilltops, they could live anywhere under the tree and all that. As the Suttas say, they only bring with them their 3 robes and their alms bowl, and they could go anywhere like a bird, free as a bird. And so that was ideal for the holy life, because a monk is advised by the Buddha to live alone, to live in secluded places. But once he insists on vegetarian, once the emperor insisted on vegetarian food, that really upset the lifestyle of monks in China. So I'll just end here.
I can't tell you how the 84,000 laws came about, but certainly it is not the Buddha teachings. 84,000 is one of those figures that was commonly used in India. For example, 500 is one of the common figures If for example, the number is anywhere between say 250 to 750, and then they say maybe 500. And so 84,000 is supposed to be a very large number. So they use it actually, we know in Mahayana Buddhism, they say a lot of things which are contrary to what the Buddha said. In the Buddha's Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, there's only one path to liberation taught by the Buddha. Only one path that is important in the Buddha's teachings, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. There's no other path that is important. But other things that are practiced are all related to the Noble Eightfold Path. Like this Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 52, the 11 doors mentioned here are all related to the Noble Eightfold Path. But when you see 84,000 doors, Dhamma doors, then it is confusing people. Practically anything also can do. Just like the Mahayanis like to say, this provisional means, provisional means, for example, they say the Mahayana monks, they don't have to keep the Vinaya, they have to keep the monastic rules because is a expedient means for the Bodhisattva. It's easier for the Bodhisattva to do their work. But this is not what the Buddha says. The Buddha is very strict about the Vinaya rules. Other things we see, like if you practice, if you cultivate heart on the spiritual,
you live alone and you meditate and all that, they say that is selfish. The Arahant path is a selfish path, but that's not what the Buddha said. Yeah.
What about the sleeping position? Also be facing east?
No.
Just one more question.
Wait, one by one. This Buddha and the Arahants, when they meditate, they face east because they are very sensitive. But for ordinary people, you are not so sensitive. It doesn't matter which direction you face. Okay? And then sleeping, when the Buddha was about to enter Nibbana, to pass away, he lay down with the head facing the north. So if you like, you can follow him with the head facing the north. But it's not always convenient. Right? It's not always convenient. Anyway, when you fall asleep, you don't know what's going on, so it doesn't matter.
Minimum sleep, what does that mean? How many hours of sleep?
Minimum sleep is different for each person. Different for each person. The more efficient your mind becomes, the less sleep you need. So we are all at different levels. So you cannot practice like the Buddha. The Buddha doesn't sleep. The Buddha and the Arahant disciples, they are said to be mindful 24 hours a day. That is why you cannot accuse them of any fault because they are mindful 24 hours a day. Even when they sleep, it's not like ordinary persons. Ordinary persons, when we sleep, we are not aware of our surrounding. But the Buddha and his Arahants, they are mindful 24 hours a day and they rest fully awake. That's why, like here, the Buddha said he will, in that sutta, the Buddha said he will lie down and take a rest. And remember, Ananda was giving the talk, and Buddha was aware of all that was said. Okay, shall we end here?